So thanks for agreeing to the recording. It just means that we can pass on to people who haven't been able to make it today. So little bit of background. I'm a piano player myself, and I started teaching Keynotes, which is a group piano program, just before we went into lockdowns, which was a bit of a weird timing to do it. A few people thought I was insane to start a brand new program using technology that all of us were unfamiliar with at that time. And Melbourne in Australia, where I am, has the dubious honor of being the most locked down city in the world. So I got very good at teaching on Zoom very quickly. And there was a couple of features about that program that I absolutely loved. And when I looked long and hard to find something that we could do for guitar students, I couldn't find a program that had these features, which is how we decided to actually write it. So the things that it does that I love for groups solve most of the problems that you might encounter trying to get groups to work sustainably over the long term. One of the problems that you have is what happens if you have students who are at different levels on their instrument. And if you just grab whatever materials that you know and love that work beautifully for you in private lesson setting and go, well, I know this stuff inside out. I'm really successful at teaching it. My students have great progress using these materials. You can find that you can put together a group of students who are at a similar level and that will work for a period of time. But sooner or later, someone's going to be practicing a lot and they're going to pick things up quickly and they're going to be running ahead. And someone else, maybe not so much. They might not be doing as much practice, or for whatever reason, maybe their dexterity is not as well developed, or whatever reason, they're going to be lagging behind a little bit. And so over time, that span of skills is actually going to expand and eventually it becomes unworkable. So what our program has, and also the Keynotes piano program has, is that every single song has multiple difficulty levels built into it. So right from the word go, if you've got a brand new student who's never picked up the instrument before, there's a super easy version for them. It's possibly a one-note version of the song. And for other students, there are more complex versions of the songs. So that's one part of it. There's differentiation right from the word go built into every single song. So you're not, as a teacher, standing in a classroom looking at a sea of faces going, what am I going to do with this student? What am I going to do with this student? What am I going to do with this student? It's all already there for you. And we do that in a number of ways. We have the materials written in both notation and tablature, and we have simplified chords and more complex chords. And in a lot of cases, there's also multiple parts to the song. So there'll be a really easy version and another more complex version. So we achieve that through a number of different ways. The other thing that makes it work for the long term for sustainable groups is that we also have the program is cyclical. So for each approximate age group, there are 5 workbooks that can be done in any order. And what that means is that a lot of those learning objectives, you get several opportunities to master them as a student. So our youngest students would be 4 years old. So the program for 4-year-olds plus. You might have a group of completely brand new students and they'll do that for a term, which might go for anywhere between 8 or 10 or 11 weeks, depending on how you've set up your school. And then the students, so some students might need to do all 5 of those workbooks before they're mastering the hardest versions of every song. Whereas someone else, so maybe they're already 5 or 6 or possibly even 7 when they were a complete beginner, they might only need 1 or 2 workbooks at the level before they're ready to go up to the next series of books. It also means that at the beginning of every term, every student's starting on a brand new book. And when you bring a completely new student in, they're also starting on the same brand new book as everybody else in the class. So you never have that scenario of, well, we've already done 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, half a year, whatever, and I've got a space in the class. How can I possibly bring a new student in without going back to the beginning for everybody else, which is going to be boring for everybody else? So the structure of it is specifically designed so that it works for groups. Any questions so far? I have a no from Shayla. I'm assuming that's a no from Sherri too. So if you'd like, I can actually show you some of the workbooks and take you through how they work. And
That'd
can
be
I
great.
ask a
What is it again that your series is called?
group guitar program?
This is what it is, just group guitar program?
Yeah. Can I ask what age students you're looking at?
We take 7 and up.
7 and up. And
Yeah.
Sherri?
Um, yeah, I have a wide variety of ages, but mainly older kids and younger teenagers.
Okay, so maybe I won't show you the 4-year-old plus program to start with, because it's possibly not so relevant to you guys. It might be something that you look at in the future. We can start with the 7 plus, which is, let's have a look at this one. I'll share my screen. So that is, the Zoom instructions are always in a really awkward place, covering up what I'm looking at. So this is one of them. It's the mystery workbook, and I'm going to also open the lesson plan so you can take a look at those too, and I'll have them side by side. Just move that to my other screen so I can see what I'm doing a little better. So this on the left is what the workbook looks like, and there's PDF versions for you to download. And we have them in 2 formats, US letter paper size and also A4 paper size, because different countries in the world use different ones. And for each of those, we also have a print at home version, which is what we're looking at here, which if you just have a domestic printer, you just press print and off you go. And we also have the commercial print versions, which is what you would use if you wanted to send it off to a commercial printer. So they actually have trim marks around the edge because they print them on giant rolls of paper and then trim them to size. So you've got lots of options of how to print them. And there's a reference page on the inside cover, and you can see there we've got simpler versions and more complex versions of the chords that are used in this book, and a little diagram to help you go through and explain where to find how to connect the tablature with the actual instrument. And here's our first song and our first lesson plan. And so down here, you'll see there's always objectives noted for you, and you'll see that also in the lesson plan. So your very first song ever, is that actually big enough? Do you want me to make it a bit bigger for you to see? So our very first song, it's an open E string the entire way through. So they're basically going to learn this by rote. The teacher would play it for them. All of the songs have lyrics at this level. So often it's easier for students to access the rhythm of the song if there's lyrics involved rather than something that's a bit less kind of tangible for them. And the first time a new note is written, you can actually see, which hopefully you can on the screen there, that E is actually written in the first note. So we've got it on tablature as well as notation. And you can see that they're all color coded. So for a brand new student, even those terms might be a bit overwhelming on the very first lesson. You can say, I want you to just look at the blue ones, or you might just want to be looking at the red ones. So that makes it a little bit easier for communication with the students. Part 2 is a little bit more complex. There's a bunch more notes in there, and that's the differentiation already. So your brand new student that's never played guitar before, that's what they're going to be tackling. And someone else who maybe it's their second book or third book or fourth book or wherever they're at as a student, they can be tackling that. And that will all be written out in the challenges here. So challenge 1 is the main melody reading tablature. Challenge 2, reading notation. Challenge 3, strum chords, either the 3-string simple chords shown in green or the more complex one in brown. Challenge 4, play the more complex melody. One of the things that I like about this is that it's right from the outset giving students the idea that music can be composed of multiple different components and that all of them are valid. So even someone who's playing the most basic version of the song, they're contributing something musical, they can participate straight away. And other people have got more complex things for them to tackle. So second song, we've now got, and on each page when they're learning a new note, there's a space for them to write that in. So that means when they're going home to practice and they're like, how did I do this again? They've got a visual reference for themselves that they've actually drawn in the notes to help them consolidate that knowledge. So this melody again has just the E's and the F's in it, and we've added staccato and a rest there. And then part 2 has more complex chords and also a more complex melody. Any questions so far? No questions? Okay.
Nope.
Third song, we've got to introduce a third note. And again, every time a new note is here, it's written inside the note head and a more complex part. And so G is the objective for this one. The next song, our objective is B, C, and D on the second string. And you can see that there's a lot more challenging things happening in part 2 again. Who stole the cookie? So if you imagine, so this is what are we up to? The 5th week of term. Imagine if you had a brand new student joining you that hadn't started at the beginning. What you would do is give them part 2, which only has 2 notes in it. It's basically a baseline. So it means that at any point during the term, you can actually slot a new student into the class. And I think that's one of the challenging things that people find with groups is, what do I do when I have a brand new person joining us? They can't necessarily jump in on what everybody else is doing if they don't have that background. But the beauty of this being, let's say somebody did start here, that was their first ever lesson. It's not that they're going to miss out on all of the things that happened before, because they're going to get another chance to tackle them in the subsequent book that they do, which can be any of the other 4. Where is the treasure? Part 2. And there's a little review there. What's behind the tree? Let me know if I'm going too fast or you'd like me to slow down. And then the final piece here is actually in 3 parts. So you could have a student doing 2 of them and the teacher do the 3rd, or share them out in any way. And so all of them have a lesson plan to explain how to tackle them and what you can do. And we've started to do teacher training videos as well, which we haven't got for every single workbook yet, but they are coming. So that means if you're asking another teacher to teach them for you, you can just give them access to those materials. Any questions? How about a thumbs up for we good? Or
All is good.
So I can show you another book in this level if you like. That was me attempting to contact her. So what have I got here?
Can you show one of the older books?
Okay, so this is the road trip book. This is the 9+, and it is more complex material. And that's another thing that we've been adding is practice videos that you can access through here. So the guitar teacher that I wrote this with has done demonstrations of all the songs and actually explained this is how you're going to play them and this is what the chords are and all of that stuff. And we're in the middle of updating all of these QR codes onto the books that you'll be able to download. Bit of rhythm stuff there as a reference page. So sometimes a question that we're asked is, are all of the songs originals, or can students be learning songs that they're familiar with? The administrative difficulty of using popular songs in a program that's available all over the world would mean that we would need to get copyright in every single jurisdiction for every single song. And to do that sounds like a headache that I'd prefer not to have. And I would need to charge way more for the program. So I wanted to keep it affordable for everybody. But what we have done is like really commonly used chord progressions like 1, 6, 4, 5 that are everywhere. Ed Sheeran didn't invent it and neither did I. But what we have done is gone, well, you can learn this song and learn these chords, And then you can play Perfect by Ed Sheeran once you've learnt these chords. So that's kind of our way of bridging the gap so that people can use this material to play songs that they're familiar with.
I have a question then.
Sure.
So when you suggest them to play that song, do you give them a, where to go to do that song, or do they just have to look that up?
So you can supplement,
like for Perfect.
Yeah. So the chords are here.
Right.
But you would go to YouTube or Spotify or whatever.
So they would just need to go find it wherever
Yeah.
they could. Okay.
And that was the way that the solution that we had to come up with to make it so it is relevant for pop songs that are really popular, and to try and do that in such a way that it's, popular in most of the countries, and not have to go through a massive administrative process of getting copyright for every pop song in every country all over the world. So yeah, I've sometimes been asked, well, what if I don't want to do this or that or the other, or I really want to add such and such? And I like to think of all the things that are in these books as a menu. As a teacher, you know the students in front of you, and you know who's capable of what, and you know which musical concepts they are ready to be introduced to at any given time. So in addition to the workbooks themselves, we also have a bunch of musical games, and you draw upon them at the appropriate time for your students. It's not like a McDonald's franchise where you absolutely must do everything in a very prescriptive way. You make it work for the teachers that you have and the students in any given class. So Campfire Song, it's in 12/8, and there's part 2. And then obviously we've got more complex chord symbols coming in here. So we've got just a page of those. Another song which has similar chords to Shake It Off by Taylor, which I'm sure people all over the world are pretty familiar with. Another one similar to Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo. And there's an alternate pattern there too. So you can see that the complexity of this material is a lot more than the previous level. Am I scrolling too fast? No, it's good. And again, there's the color coding, so you can direct a student to play the brown or the purple or whatever makes sense for those classes. No questions? And that's the end of the book. So I can show you some of the games if you'd like to take a look at those. Yeah.
That would be good.
Where do I put them? And you can download all of these off the website. I just find it's a bit of a slow process, so I like to do it in advance. So here we've got one called Match the Note. It tells you what the equipment is. Print the last 4 pages double-sided. You can do them on paper and then laminate them and cut them into cards, or you can do them on card. We can do them on stickers and stick them on regular playing cards. You can have a set for each student or a set between 2 or 3. And then there's 3 different options of games that you can use them for. Students match all the cards. First student or team to get them correct wins. Or a memory game, spread them out face down, and students take turn turning over 2 cards. If they get a match, they can keep them. If not, they turn them face down again. Student with the most cards wins. We can play Snap. Use a single set of cards, shuffle, divide evenly, etc., etc. And that's just an empty page so that the double-sided stuff actually works when you print it. So that's showing you the fretboard, and then that's the back of those cards, which that set is blue, and then all the letters are here with the 1st and 3rd string, and then the back of those cards is green. And the reason we've done that is just at the end of the game, it makes it really easy to separate the 2 piles into what they need to be. So that's one. And we've got match the chord, which is a similar idea. So that's what they look like, again with a different coloured back for both types. There's a rhythm flashcard set, which you can use for all sorts of things, and some ideas of how to play it. There's a bunch of other ones like that. Let's stop share. So have I overwhelmed you with information? No. So for each age group, and we start at 4 years old, there's 5 workbooks, and they can be done in any order. So we have 4 terms a year in Australia. So 5 books gives us a year plus 1 term. And it's pretty unusual that somebody wouldn't be ready to move up to the next level by the time that they've done 5. Occasionally it's happened if someone's really young when they first start. And obviously if they're not putting in so much practice time, that makes a difference too. And then they can move up to the next level whenever they're ready. And then there's 5 books at that level too. And then the 9+ books, the last one that I just showed you, they generally are done over 2 terms. The songs are longer and they're more complex. And at this point, we've got 2 of them on the website, and we will be adding more as we go along. So we're running all of this in our own studio, which means we can test it with live students. And sometimes we go back and tweak things if we find that, we found a way to make them work better. And all of those updates go on to the website. So whatever you download will be the most up-to-date versions of things.
So are all your stuff, it's downloadable, right? Like it's
Yes.
all stuff that you just PDFs.
Yep, they're all PDFs. We've also got certificates that you can give out to students at the end of the term, and we've got them in 2 versions. One is it's literally got a white box in it where you write the student's name, and it says, they've completed whichever the workbook is and mastered these objectives. And then the other version is a Canva version. So if you have a list of your student names in a CSV, you can actually upload them into Canva, and it will create an individualized certificate for every student from the list that you gave it. What else have we got? I'm sure there's some other things. There's some stuff on there about how to set up the space and what equipment you'll need and that kind of thing. Shayla, you mentioned you're already doing group guitars.
Yeah.
Classes. How are they working, and how many students? Tell me about that.
They're good. Yeah, we have up to 5 kids in a class.
Mm-hmm.
We generally keep it based on level.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that's just what we found was easier to do. We have right now 1 beginner class that starts next week actually, and then we have a this is usually after the first year we find that kids like to go private, but this is our first year where kids want to stick in a group. So we've got like a full class of 6 kids actually who are all experienced, and they're all doing it again this year. So I'm not teaching it, one of my guitar teachers is doing it. So I get to just like step back and like observe and like give her resources and stuff. So that's kind of why I wanted to look into this, because I wanted to find some other things, because it's like there's just not a lot out there for guitar.
No, I didn't intend
and
to
I don't
myself having written a program, but I couldn't find anything that I loved, and I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
If I didn't have materials that
Yeah. And like I've written stuff that we use, and we have like theory work she's created specifically for guitar, because like everything's for piano, right? Games are all for piano, theory books are for, and even like because in Canada you can do exams for guitar, but even the theory portion, it only makes sense if you play piano, which is fine, but then it's not really fair for like the 7 or 8 year olds who are learning guitar and they're just trying to figure out their instrument. So we've done so much of that, but because it's overwhelming and I've got so many other things to do, I was like, I need to find other resources to not be doing this all on my own. So the series we have is nice, but I've had my eye on yours for a little while, so I thought I wanted to kind of check it out and actually see it. So yeah.
So do you think it might be a good fit for you?
I think so. Even if not for our group classes, I think that even from our private classes, even
no reason that you can't use it for private students.
Well, and I also like, I'm a big believer that like it's good to have multiple methods and approaches as well, because like some methods like piano, there's a dime a dozen, right? Like you throw a coin and you have 100 different method books, whereas guitar, there's
I,
not really many options. So
I have wondered long about why that is. And
yeah,
the best theory is that I think that a lot of people who are attracted to becoming piano teachers are the people for whom reading music came naturally. And because it came naturally to them, they think that that is how one must teach piano. And it becomes very much sight before sound. You can't play that unless you can tell me where middle C is on the stave, until you can tell me
yeah,
what treble clef is, until you can tell me what. And this approach is the reverse. It's sound
yeah,
before sight, because I don't think somebody signs up for music lessons so that they can learn a bunch of theory. I think they sign up for music lessons so that they can play a song. And
exactly.
for our little kids songs, the 4-year-old program that I haven't actually shown you, they can literally play a one-note song at the end of the first lesson. It's designed to be fast wins, easy wins,
Yeah.
so that they can go
And
home
that,
with a great big smile on their face that I played the guitar, and that's what we
yeah,
want. And the
and
rest
that's my
follow.
philosophy too. That's my
Yeah.
philosophy too for like for piano, same thing. Like, and all my teachers, I tell them this. I go, when the kid goes home, they need to have a song. I don't care if the song is that they are playing, like we call the group of two black notes the doghouse. Like, I don't care if they
I
have a
use
rhythm
that
in their
too.
notebook and they're playing the doghouse.
Yep.
They need to be playing a song and taking it home to practice,
Yep.
because that kid's going to come back the next week so proud of themselves because they practice. They need, and same with guitar. It's like it's so easy to introduce E, like the E string, right? And you introduce the rhythm and introduce the E string.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, but again, but teaching guitar is so different than teaching piano,
It totally
because
is.
it's
Yeah.
so much more abstract, right? Piano just gives it to you, whereas guitar, like I've got one of my students, I teach classical guitar,
Mhm.
and he's doing really well with it, but he even still sometimes is like, oh shoot, where's
Mm.
the note? Whereas by lesson 3 on a piano, the kid can find
Yeah.
every single C and every single D, right? Like it's just a
And
different
it is a very
approach.
different mindset. Like when I studied music at university, everybody was required to do piano as a second instrument if it wasn't their
Mm.
main instrument.
Yeah,
Theory was taught with a piano keyboard because you can see it visually.
yeah,
And there are some amazing guitarists in the world who don't read music at all.
yeah,
And I'm a member of many Facebook groups for piano teachers, and occasionally someone will say, oh, I had this student and they just wanted to play it by ear. I played it for them once and they remembered it. And how can I stop this terrible habit they've got?
yeah,
And I'm mortified by that you've got a student who has some natural ability and you just want to disregard that and say, you can't play piano unless you can read. And
yeah,
to me, we're all on a continuum. Some people naturally find reading easier, and often those musicians are not so strong with memory, with being able to remember music, or their ear isn't as strong, and the reverse is also true. And I think that the whole musician needs to develop whichever one is also not their strong side. So that's
yeah,
partly why we've got the tablature and the notation. And I get that if you're just reading notation as a guitarist, it's like, well, which G do I want to play? I can play it here or here or here. And so to read notation for guitarists, it means that they have to make hundreds of decisions as they
yeah,
read. And that's why a lot of them find tablature an easier way in. I once interviewed a guy who was a guitar teacher and had an amazing vibe, and he was a really good player, and I could see from his personality he'd get on great with kids. And he was saying, oh, the previous place I worked, he'd come from overseas, they didn't give me any materials. I just had to completely provide that entirely myself. And I started to show him our materials, and then it became clear to both of us that because he wasn't a reader, he couldn't actually access them. So
uh,
like I can provide the materials, but if the teacher's own reading isn't of a standard that they can confidently read what's on the page,
yeah,
it actually didn't really help him that much. And we ended up kind of going, well, you know, for someone to teach our group guitar program,
You had to read music.
to some level, I mean, it's not that
Yeah.
complex. It's not the most technically, it's designed for kids, and
Yeah.
it starts at really young beginners. But even the fact that the notation and the tablatry is both there, even if you've got a teacher who isn't that comfortable reading notation and they're following the tablature, for both the teacher and the student, that notation's there. And whether or not they necessarily realize it or are concentrating on it, they're going to see the melodic contour. They're going to see how the rhythms fall. So kind of by osmosis, some of it's going to go in. And then at the point that they do decide to learn reading and make that more of a priority, it's not a completely foreign set of weird dots on the page that they don't understand even where to begin.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so you're just back to what you were saying, where instead of, notes first and then whatever, you were saying sound first. Can you just explain what you mean a little bit more by that?
So when a child learns to speak, we don't say, you're not allowed to say that word unless you can hold a pen and write it down for me. They learn to speak by listening and by copying, and they're not perfect at the start and they make mistakes, but they learn to speak. And then we teach them to read and write. But in some worlds, you're not allowed to play that complicated stuff if you can't read it. No. You got to play it exactly as it is on the page or else. And that philosophy, I think, is the reason why for students who naturally find reading easy, that approach works fine. And I think there's been a process of natural selection that lots of piano teachers are those people, the people for whom reading was easy. And for people who, for everybody else, which is probably most of the population, you want to play a song. You want to go home from lesson one, and because they've all got lyrics, I would generally get students to sing the song with the lyrics and then maybe sing the letter names. And then, so really get that melody in their head, and then we want them to be able to play it on an instrument.
So you're having them sing the song and hear the song before they try to play it. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So they're hearing the melody. So I'm just trying to, for the songs that you had on, that you were scrolling through on the pages. So are you playing it for them? Are you singing it for them? You're doing that as the teacher.
Yeah.
And letting them hear it.
Yeah.
And then they play without, I mean, are you having them look at the notes and saying, okay, this is what we're doing? You're teaching them that. You're not just having them try to mimic what you're doing before you show them on the paper?
I definitely want them to be able to sing it confidently before I expect them to be able to play it on an instrument, because there's so many hurdles of how do you hold it and where do you put your hands and how do you press down afresh and how do you, all of the things. That's a lot for a brand new young beginner to be able to master simultaneously. I've occasionally had, this is actually a piano teacher I'm thinking of, but classical background, studying music at tertiary level, and it didn't occur to him to play the song to the students before they were expected to play it. And these were, I think, 7-year-olds who aren't reading music confidently yet. And it's a little bit like, we're going to go bowling and I'm going to put a curtain in front of the pins. So you don't know what you're aiming for, but I want you to fling a bowling ball down that alley. Good luck. So for people who are good at reading, they look at written music and they can immediately audiate it and know what it should sound like. I actually sometimes think of, so my ear was always stronger than my reading, and my reading I've had to work on and I've developed it over the years. But I remember acutely the feeling of looking at written music and just being bewildered and not knowing how to make sound out of it. It just was dots on a page that were overwhelming. And as a teacher, that's my superpower, because I know what it feels like to sit in that. I have no idea what that sounds like just from looking at it. So I don't want students to sit in that awkwardness and uncomfortableness and that, all right, go play it. But I don't know what to play.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we doing it the way that we learn to speak first and then read and write after? Let's get them confident playing. And as they're doing it, absolutely show them where we're up to in the book. And that's why it's color coded in the book. You're playing the red notes or the blue notes or whatever they are on the page. And we definitely do teach reading, but not first. We want them to get comfortable with playing and confident with playing, and then we want them to love playing. And then we can see that that will hopefully motivate them to be able to access the music independently themselves by reading. I kind of wish I could see your face, Sherri, to know if you're going, yeah, I'm with you, or what is she talking about?
I'll see if I can get on there. Whoops, see, I can't even
Oh, we've just
do
got a
my,
blank
oh,
screen for you.
well,
There
yeah.
you are. Hello.
Hi.
So did that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah, some of the teachers that I have that are really confident readers, those are the ones that I find I'm doing the most training of how to teach students how to read. Because for people that just look at the page and immediately know what it sounds like, they'll often do something like, let's give you a rhythm example. So there's 4 beats in the bar and each beat is worth 1. And if you're 6 years old, or even if you're 9 years old and you've never learned music before, what's a beat and what's a bar? So basically she said a bunch of words to a student which don't mean anything in terms of how do I make music out of that? What does that mean in terms of playing a rhythm? And sometimes when I interview people and I'll go, a standard thing that I do as part of the interview process is I'll play something with many of the common errors that a young student would make. I play something that's written in 3/4 as if it's in 4/4 by jamming an extra beat in the end of every bar, which is a really common error that people make. I don't play it legato, and I miss a repeat sign at the end. And I have a standard thing that I do with all the people I interview so that I'm comparing apples with apples. And sometimes they'll go, oh, but there's 3 beats in the bar, so let's try it again. And I'm like, what's a beat? What's a bar? I'm 6. What does that mean? If you can't feel 3/4, you can't play 3/4.
I think something as well that I've noticed is that the difference between like piano as well, because a lot of people that teach piano will teach another instrument, is that again, like you're saying, it's so different because on a piano, the notes go up on the piano, they go up on the staff, they go down, the notes go down. A guitar doesn't do that.
The reverse, yeah.
The guitar goes, and a good guitar goes like this, right?
Yeah.
And
even
so
the strings, the highest pitch strings are closest to the floor and the lowest pitch strings
exactly.
are closest to the
And
ceiling.
so for piano, that concept of playing it is quite easy to learn beginner piano. That's why like piano is the easiest instrument to learn because it's so like it's there, you can connect it. Whereas guitar, like we get so many parents, oh yeah, my 4-year-old really wants to learn guitar. And we're like, okay, but I don't think it's not just strumming on a guitar. Like there's actually that's also why we don't take 7 until kids are 7, because we're just like, I don't have patience for that. But it's not, it is much more abstract. And that's when the note reading is challenging. Cause like in theory, like all of our, like, for example, all of our guitar students, they can name all the notes on the staff. But then to have them find it on their guitar is a whole other story, right?
Yeah.
And so
Which
their
string am I going
theory,
for? Yeah.
their theory ability is way ahead of where their playing is. And that's what it's like. I love how you did it nice and slow and made it nice and basic, right? Where to help them work through that to make those connections to the strings, because it's just such a different style. And you can, I think guitar as well is much more ear and it's much more rote than it is. Whereas piano players get so stuck in, well, you can't play by rote. You can't play. And we forget that other instruments like Suzuki, violin strings is entirely by ear. Like that's, it's just a different instruments. You learn them differently.
Yeah. It is a very different approach. And I mean, I'm a piano player myself, but I also have come from having a stronger ear than my reading. And I also, you know, I sat with a guitar teacher who also teaches piano to create all of these materials. So we literally sat side by side. He had a guitar, I had a keyboard, I was on Sibelius, and I go, what about this? Oh no, F minor is too hard for them at this point. Okay, we won't do F minor until later. And so having the background of both, I think that was really important, and using the simpler chords that only use 3 strings for the easier levels and the 6-string like we've looked at as many different ways as we can to make sure that that differentiation is built in there to for all different students at all different levels. Does it seem like something that might be a good fit for you, Shayla?
Yeah, I'm actually just looking at your website right now. Sorry. I was actually just looking at like, oh, where's the sign up and stuff? How does this all work? Yeah, it does actually. Like, again, like I said, I'm trying to find different things and different approaches to teaching to use, because we've got so many different kids. We actually have a lot of kids with autism that are doing guitar.
Yeah.
And my guitar teacher, she's fantastic with them. And I feel like this is why they keep coming, is because she's so great working with them. But of course, the way they learn is so different, right? Every kid learns so differently, but she's finding different challenges that she doesn't find with with kids necessarily otherwise. And so we're trying to find other engaging material that I don't have to create.
For the moment, we've called it 4+, 7+, and 9+, but we're actually going to rename them because not every 7-year-old is the same. And a 7-year-old who's come from already learning another instrument, or maybe has already learned guitar and comes to you at 7, and we're working on that. We're nearly there with renaming them. And even the 9+ materials, you could use them for adult beginners.
Yeah.
They don't have to just be for kids.
That's true.
Sherri, your thoughts? I'm so glad I can now see you, but I haven't kind of had a sense of either going, yeah, this is great, or what is she talking about? So
sorry. So can we try it out? I was trying to remember if there was, like, you have a little trial period where you could
so there
look
is
at it into
a free trial. Like when you sign up, you get 7 days before your card will be charged, so you can take a look at all the materials. And see if there's things that are a good fit for you.
Okay, how long is that trial period?
There's a 7-day trial.
7 day. Okay. Yeah, so because I can't say right now if it would be a good fit. I need to ponder it and take a look and see.
Yeah.
But it looks like
I can do a 1-month free trial, which might just give you a little bit more time to poke around and see where it is. I can email you, both of you, a code for that.
That would be fine.
More time to take a look around.
Okay, because I tend to need to just really think about it.
Yeah. And when I very first came across the group piano program, my initial thoughts were, how can groups possibly work? I approach every student differently and tailor my classes for that student. Students learn at different paces. And then when I discovered that the differentiation in every single song and the cyclical nature, then I'm like, this could possibly work. I can see in my mind that this would solve those problems. And then for about a second, I went, well, I can just use the materials that I've already got, and I can build all this differentiation into it myself, and I can write other parts, and I can do whatever. And then I went, wow, that is so much work. Why would I want to do that? Which is kind of ironic because I've ended up doing it now for guitar. But to create it from scratch is actually a pretty big undertaking. And because I looked so long and hard to find something for guitar that would actually work long-term for groups, and couldn't find anything that was even close, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I'm like, well, if I couldn't find it, then nobody else can find it either. I should probably make this available for other schools to use too.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Like, it's more because really, Hal Leonard is the one that has the main hand in guitar. And it's not that it's bad, it's just it's only one way.
Yeah.
Right? and it's not colorful, it's not engaging for kids. And I found a couple of like kids books, but again, what I don't like about a lot of them is I don't love how it spends like half a page with instructions.
Yeah.
I'm like, but why do I need a half a page? That's what I'm here for. I just need the
Yeah.
music. You don't have this in a piano book. You
Yep.
don't have 5 pages of instruction and then this much content. You have just the music because the teachers like it's no. So that's what the other thing that drives me mental is I'm wasting half a book
Yeah.
on these instructions that the kid's not going to read. I'm going to be teaching them all that, and then we only have 10 songs to get through. And the songs also, I don't like often how the setup is done or how fast it goes, and or so it's hard. So that's also why, but I've created my own book, but I mean, I'm just never happy with it. It's good. My book is better for like older kids.
Okay.
That one that I created, like, which it is great for our teens, but we were kept trying to alter it to be better for younger kids, and I just finally was like, I need something different. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I cannot recreate the wheel.
It is a lot of work. I'll admit to that. So, and luckily I'm doing it with another guitar teacher. I actually got 2 guitar teachers, and one of them's going to be going through all of the lesson plans and making sure they're all consistent. And I've got other people on it with me now, so makes it a little bit.
So, what does your subscription provide?
Access to all of it. So you get all of the workbooks in PDF form, which you can download and print. You get the certificates, which you can either download and print and handwrite a student's name in it, or you can do the Canva thing where you upload your list of names and it spits them out for you all pretty. All of the games, which are downloadables, the lesson plans, and we're working on teacher training videos for every lesson, which is going to take a bit of time, but we're getting there too. That means that if you're a little bit like, how do I do this? You can watch a video, or if you've got other staff teaching it for you, you can just direct them to watch those videos. And there's some basics. Oh, there's a few images you can use for social media if you want to promote the classes. Is there anything else on there? Set up instructions of how to set up the space, and for example, if you have kids using electric guitars, we have a multi-channel amp and different bright colored leads in the room, so it's really obvious which student is plugged into which channel without having to follow a lead across a room, and just the things like that to just make it easier for everybody. So cool. It's all there. If you want to supplement with other materials, you're welcome to do that. I don't have you must do it my way or the highway view at all. Here's the menu. Here's a bunch of things. Draw upon them as it works for you. Use them in the classes as they work for you. Any other questions?
Cool.
Our 30-minute Zoom is
so, but
we just started.
All right. Yeah. And so you'll send us that link for whatever we need to be able to get the trial then. That would be good. Sooner the better.
Cool. I'll send that after we finish the Zoom. Lovely to meet both of you, the SH Club.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.